Imagine waking up one day to find that the one thing connecting you to your lost loved one has vanished, sold off by the people you trusted most. That's exactly what happened to me. My name is Alex, and this is the story of how my family's betrayal pushed me to a decision that changed everything. It all started with my father's watch, a simple but priceless heirloom that held memories of laughter, lessons, and love. But when I discovered it was gone, replaced by nothing but excuses and greed, I knew I had to act. Little did they know, my revenge would be swift and silent, leaving them as stunned as I was. How far would you go to reclaim what's rightfully yours? Stick around, because this tale of family bonds broken and justice served will keep you on the edge of your seat. My father was the rock of our family. He passed away 5 years ago from a sudden heart attack, leaving behind my mother, my 2 siblings, my older brother Mark, and my younger sister Lisa, and me. We lived in a cozy old house in the suburbs, the kind with creaky floors and walls full of photos from better days. Dad wasn't rich, but he worked hard as a mechanic, fixing cars and teaching us the value of honesty and hard work. His most treasured possession was an antique watch, a gift from his grandfather who fought in World War II. It wasn't fancy, no diamonds or gold, but it ticked with history. Dad wore it every day, and he'd often say, "This watch reminds me that time is precious, Alex. Don't waste it on regrets." After Dad's funeral, the house felt empty. Mom took over the finances, and Mark, being the oldest, started acting like he was in charge. Lisa was still in college, so she came home on weekends. I was the middle child, working as a graphic designer from home, helping with bills and keeping things running. The watch? Dad left it to me in his will. It was specified clearly. To my son, Alex, my father's watch, so he always remembers where we came from. I kept it in a drawer in my room, polishing it now and then, feeling Dad's presence whenever I held it. It wasn't just metal and gears. It was a piece of him, but life moved on, or so I thought. Money got tight. Mom complained about bills, Mark talked about selling some old stuff to ease the burden, and Lisa nodded along, dreaming of her own apartment. I suggested we all pitch in more, maybe cut back on extras like Mark's fancy dinners or Lisa's shopping sprees. They brushed it off, saying I was too sentimental, too stuck in the past. Tension simmered, but I never imagined they'd cross the line. One evening, after a long day at work, I decided to wear the watch to a family dinner we had planned. I opened the drawer and it was gone. My heart dropped. I searched everywhere, under the bed, in closets, even in the attic. Nothing. Panic set in. Had I misplaced it? No, I was careful with it always. I confronted them that night at dinner. "Where's Dad's watch? It's missing from my room." Mom avoided my eyes, stirring her soup. Mark cleared his throat. "Oh, that old thing? We sold it." "Sold it?" The words hit like a punch. They explained casually. An antique dealer offered a good price, enough to cover some debts. "It was just sitting there, Alex," Lisa said. "We needed the money." "Just sitting there?" "It was mine." Dad's will made that clear. "They didn't ask, didn't warn me." Mom mumbled something about family decisions, but I saw the guilt in her eyes. Mark defended it, saying, "You're overreacting. It's just a watch." But it wasn't. It was betrayal, pure and simple. They took what was mine, erased a part of Dad without a second thought. That night I lay awake, anger boiling. How could they? I trusted them, loved them, and this is what I got? The days after were a blur of hurt and rage. I barely spoke to them, slamming doors and eating alone. They acted like nothing happened, even spending the money on new gadgets and clothes. Mark bought a new phone, Lisa got designer bags, and Mom paid off credit cards. Seeing them enjoy it fueled my fire. I remembered Dad's words about time being precious. Well, they'd wasted mine. The house was in all our names, inherited jointly, but as the one handling paperwork, I had access to the deeds. An idea sparked. If they could sell my inheritance without asking, why couldn't I do the same with theirs? It was risky, but the betrayal stung too deep. I started planning in secret, contacting realtors, getting appraisals. The house was worth a fortune now, with the market booming. I forged ahead, driven by a mix of sorrow and determination. What would happen when they found out? The thought both terrified and thrilled me. As weeks turned to months, I played the part, polite but distant. Inside, I was building my case. I met with a lawyer friend who confirmed. Since the will was probated and the house joint, I could initiate a sale with majority consent, but I'd twist it to my advantage. I didn't tell them. Instead, I listed the house quietly, using online platforms to avoid suspicion. Offers poured in. I chose the highest, a young couple eager to start fresh. Signing the papers felt like reclaiming power. The closing date approached, and I packed my things discreetly. One night, I overheard them laughing about the watch money, joking how Alex is still sulking. That sealed it. No remorse, no apology. My plan was set. I'd sell, take my share, and leave them to face the consequences. But would it really bring justice or just more pain? The day of reckoning came sooner than expected. The buyers arrived for the final walkthrough, and my family was home, clueless. Who are these people? Mom asked, confused. I stood tall. They're the new owners. I sold the house. Silence. Shock rippled through the room. Mark's face turned red. You what? Without telling us? I nodded. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Like selling Dad's watch without asking me? Lisa burst into tears. Mom clutched her chest. They begged, argued, threatened lawsuits, but it was done. The papers were signed, money transferred. I took my portion, enough to start over, and walked away. They had to scramble, finding rentals, facing the reality of their actions. It wasn't easy. Guilt gnawed at me, but so did the betrayal. In the end, we all learned a hard lesson. Family is about trust, not transactions. Betraying that bond can shatter everything. Today, I'm in a new place. Rebuilding, with memories of Dad intact. Not in objects, but in my heart. If you're facing betrayal, remember, revenge might feel sweet, but healing comes from within. What would you have done? Let me know in the comments. The story revolves around Alex, whose family betrays him by selling his late father's cherished watch without permission, prompting him to sell the family house in retaliation. This narrative explores themes of grief, family dynamics, greed, and the consequences of broken trust, culminating in a reflective moral on the importance of communication and respect in relationships. To craft this script, we draw from common real-life experiences of inheritance disputes, amplified for dramatic effect. Inheritance conflicts often arise after a parent's death, with studies showing that about 70% of families experience tension over assets, according to surveys from financial planning organizations. For instance, sentimental items like watches or jewelry frequently become flashpoints because they carry emotional value beyond money. In Alex's case, the watch symbolizes his father's legacy, a common trope in betrayal stories where personal heirlooms are undervalued by others. Let's break down the family dynamics. The mother, as the surviving parent, might assume authority over decisions, a pattern seen in many households where widows or widowers centralize control to cope with loss. Siblings like Mark and Lisa represent varying degrees of selfishness. Mark as the assertive older brother pushing for practical solutions, and Lisa as the younger one going along for personal gain. This setup builds conflict naturally, mirroring real scenarios where joint inheritance leads to unequal perceptions of fairness. The betrayal moment is pivotal. Selling the watch without consent echoes real cases of inheritance theft, where family members dispose of items prematurely. Legal experts note that while wills specify distributions, enforcement can be lax in close-knit families, leading to resentment. Alex's reaction, initial shock turning to anger, is psychologically grounded. Betrayal trauma can trigger fight-or-flight responses, often resulting in retaliatory actions. Moving to the revenge plan, selling the house amplifies the drama. In reality, joint-owned properties require consensus for sale, but for storytelling, we simplify to heighten tension. This act serves as poetic justice, flipping the power dynamic. Research on revenge psychology suggests it provides temporary satisfaction, but often leads to regret, which we incorporate in the resolution for depth. The climax and resolution emphasize emotional fallout without graphic elements, adhering to safe narration. The family's shock and scrambling reflect the chaos of sudden displacement, a common outcome in disputed estates. Finally, the moral underscores reflection, promoting lessons on empathy and dialogue to prevent such escalations. For a deeper dive, consider similar real-life anecdotes. One notable case involved a family selling a deceased parent's art collection, leading to a sibling cutting ties and liquidating shared assets. Online forums like Reddit's r Am I the Asshole abound with stories of watch or jewelry disputes, where posters seek validation for revenge plots. These inspire the script's authenticity. To visualize, imagine cinematic elements, slow zooms on the empty drawer, tense dinner table confrontations, and rainy nights of planning. Voiceover should pause for emphasis on emotional lines, building suspense. Picture this: a quiet suburban house at dawn, the kind where sunlight filters through faded curtains and lands on a wooden nightstand, illuminating a small velvet box that hasn't been opened in weeks. Inside lies a tarnished silver pocket watch, its face cracked from decades of honest use, the hands frozen at 3:17, the exact moment my grandfather's heart stopped during a bombing raid in 1944, a story my father told me every birthday while winding it with trembling fingers, saying, "Alex, this isn't just time. It's legacy. It's proof that good men keep ticking even when the world tries to stop them." And now, 5 years after Dad's own heart gave out in the garage while fixing Mrs. Henderson's old Buick, that watch was the only piece of him I had left. The only thing that still carried his voice in its faint, faithful tick-tock, a sound I'd fall asleep to as a kid when nightmares came. But this morning the box was empty. The drawer yanked open like a wound. No note, no explanation, just a hollow space where love used to live. And as I stood there barefoot on the cold hardwood floor, my chest tightening like a fist around my lungs, I heard laughter downstairs, my mother's nervous giggle, Mark's booming approval, Lisa's delighted squeal, and I knew, before I even asked, that they had taken it, sold it, erased the last heartbeat of the man who raised us, all while I slept 10 feet above them, trusting, grieving, clueless. I stormed down the creaky stairs, each step a drumbeat of rising fury, and there they were, gathered around the kitchen table like conspirators at a feast, coffee steaming, toast crumbling, and Mark waving a wad of cash like a victory flag, saying, "$3 grand, Alex." Can you believe it? Some collector downtown couldn't hand it over fast enough. And Mom added softly, "We were drowning in bills, honey. The mortgage, Lisa's tuition. You understand, don't you?" But her eyes wouldn't meet mine, and Lisa just shrugged. Already scrolling through online shopping on her phone, modeling a new handbag that cost more than Dad's funeral, and when I whispered, "That was mine," the will said, Mark cut me off with a laugh, "A watch? Come on, bro, it's junk with a story." We needed real money, and in that moment the room spun, the walls closing in like a coffin. Because they didn't just sell metal and glass. They sold my father's final gift. My childhood anchor, the one thing I begged them never to touch. And as I backed away, tears burning but refusing to fall, I felt something shift inside me, a cold, sharp resolve clicking into place like the watch's own mechanism, whispering, "If they can take without asking, so can I." And upstairs in my room, I pulled out the house deeds from Dad's old fire safe, the ones listing all 4 names in joint tenancy, and I stared at the booming real estate listings on my laptop. Our sleepy suburb, now a gold mine, houses flipping for $500,000 easy, and I thought, they want to play family casino? Fine, I'll raise the stakes until the table flips. But first I needed proof, control, silence, so I started small, changing the Wi-Fi password so Mark couldn't stream his sports, hiding the good coffee so Mom had to drink the cheap stuff, canceling Lisa's rideshare account by accident, little needles to remind them I was still here, still hurting. And every night I lay awake, mapping the sale in my head, contacting realtors under a fake email, scheduling secret appraisals while they binged Netflix downstairs, oblivious. And one evening I overheard Mom on the phone bragging to Aunt Karen, "We finally got rid of that dusty old thing. Alex will get over it. Kids are resilient." And Lisa chimed in, "Yeah. And now I can get those boots I wanted." And Mark just grunted approval. And that was the moment the plan crystallized. I wouldn't just sell the house. I'd time it perfectly, right when they felt safest. And I'd walk away with my share, leaving them to scramble like rats off a sinking ship. But doubt crept in too. Late-night whispers asking if this made me the monster. If Dad would hate me for breaking the home he built brick by brick. Yet every time I remembered the empty drawer, the laughter over cash, the betrayal won, and I pushed forward, forging signatures on preliminary documents, lining up a cash buyer desperate for a quick close. A young couple with a baby on the way who toured the house while my family was at the mall. cooing over the big backyard and the mature oak tree Dad planted the year I was born, and I smiled politely, shaking hands, thinking, enjoy it while it lasts, because soon this won't be ours anymore. And as closing day crept closer, I packed in secret. Boxing memories, Dad's toolbox, my old sketchbooks, the photo of us at the lake where he taught me to fish, loading them into a storage unit across town. And I left the watch drawer empty on purpose, a silent accusation. And finally, the morning arrived, gray and rainy, the buyers pulling up in a shiny SUV, clipboards in hand, and my family still in pajamas. Mom yelling, "Who are these people?" as the realtor unlocked the front door with the key I'd given her, and I stepped forward, voice steady as steel. "Meet the new owners. I sold the house. Papers are signed, money's in escrow, closing's today." And the silence that followed was deafening, Mark's face purpling, Lisa screaming, "You can't do this!" Mom collapsing into a chair, clutching her heart, but I just handed them the eviction notice, 30 days to vacate, and said, "Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Taking what isn't yours without asking." And as they begged, threatened, cried, I felt a rush of cold triumph mixed with hot guilt. But I didn't stop. I walked out into the rain with my duffel bag, got into my car, and drove away without looking back, the house shrinking in the rearview mirror like a bad memory finally fading. And months later, I heard through a mutual friend that they were crammed into a tiny apartment. Mark working double shifts, Liza dropping out of college, Mom selling her jewelry to pay rent, and part of me ached for the family we used to be. The Thanksgivings with Dad carving turkey, the Christmas lights he strung every year. But another part, the part forged in that empty drawer, knew justice had been served. Cold and clean, and now I live in a small loft downtown. The watch money long spent on therapy and a new start. And sometimes I take out a cheap replacement ticker from the dollar store just to hear a rhythm. To remind myself that time keeps moving. Legacies aren't in objects, but in choices. And the real moral isn't revenge. It's that betrayal plants seeds. And if you're not careful, they grow into forests you can't escape. So talk to your loved ones, honor their wishes. Because one day the house you think is forever might just disappear. And you'll be left holding nothing but regret. What would you have done in my shoes? Forgiven, fought, or flipped the table? Drop your thoughts below, because family isn't just blood, it's trust. And once that's broken, rebuilding takes more than money ever could. Section 2. Echoes in empty rooms. But let me take you deeper into those final weeks before the sale. When the house still smelled like Dad's aftershave and Mom's burnt toast. When every corner held a ghost of laughter now twisted into tension. Because after the watch vanished, I didn't just plot in silence. I watched. I listened. I learned exactly how far their greed stretched. And it started with little things, like Mark sneaking into my room looking for tools, but pocketing loose change from my dresser. Lisa borrowing my laptop and deleting my design files to make space for her selfies. Mom rewriting the grocery budget to include her salon appointments while skimping on my protein shakes for the gym. And I said nothing. Just smiled tightly and documented it all in a hidden notes app titled Reasons, each entry timestamped like evidence in a trial only I knew was coming. And one night I caught them in the garage. The one Dad turned into a workshop with pegboards full of wrenches and shelves of oil cans, now half empty because Mark had been selling tools online. And there they were, huddled over a laptop, listing Dad's vintage drill press for $400. Lisa snapping photos, Mom nodding approval, saying, "He'd want us to be practical." And I stood in the shadows by the side door, heart hammering, thinking, practical? He'd want you to ask. But I slipped away unseen, added it to the list, and the next day I changed the garage code, locked them out, told them the system glitched, and watched Mark fume, banging on the keypad like it owed him money. And that small victory tasted like the first drop of revenge, sweet and addictive. So I escalated, quietly transferring the utility bills to autopay from a joint account I controlled, then forgetting to refill it so the lights flickered one evening during dinner. Mom panicking about spoiled food in the fridge, Lisa whining about no Wi-Fi for her Insta lives, Mark cursing the power company, and I